Oh yeah, one of the oh yeah, wasn't the alien in Mortal Kombat 10?
I think it was 10. And, like Freddy Krueger is in there, Jason is in there. Like they have like come on, man, like so awesome. Like this is what I'm saying though. I think the director is just like, we don't need to have a story. We have awesome shit. Let's just focus on the awesome shit and not worry about anything else. You don't need to know Sonya Blade's. Anthony, you're asking too many questions. You're asking too many questions about this film.
You're asking too much of this movie.
You're just supposed to turn your brain off and watch.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Nerdthusiast Movie Podcast. My name's Dane. I'm going to be your host today. I'm here with Anthony Sicali from the Poker Show. And we have Matt Morosi from the...
Get over here! Come on, guys.
That's an official Scorpion Mortal Kombat mask there. Look at this. Look at it. Oh, there it is. You got the official. Oh yeah, it is official.
Mortal Kombat. There you go.
Legit. Nice.
All right.
Nice.
So what we're talking about today is we're talking about the new movie that just came out just a couple days ago. It's called Mortal Kombat, and it's not a sequel to the '95 movie or the '97 movie. It's a brand new reboot, directed by a first-time director. I got to cheat and look at his name. Sorry about that. It is Simon McQuoid, McQuoid. Very interesting. But really the big thing is that it's produced by James Wan. James Wan produced Saw, all the Saw movies, and Insidious. So he's a big shot. And they just rebooted Mortal Kombat. We're gonna get Matt's opinion on the video games because I know you played a bunch of the video games. I've played a bunch of video games as well. Anthony, have you played a bunch of them?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to talk mostly about the original one because I have a lot of that hits close to heart. The old school original Mortal Kombat. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. I'll chime in about that. And I also saw the movies, all the movies. So I'll be discussing all my thoughts on those as well.
Okay, no problem. All right. So first of all, the movie just came out, and it's a big deal. It's on HBO Max, which is probably how we all saw it. I don't think any of us are going to a movie theater anytime soon.
I did. I saw it in IMAX.
Really?
Yes, I did.
That must have been good.
Yes. I'll discuss that a little bit. But yeah,
right.
I saw it in IMAX.
What's it like going to a movie theater? By the way, I haven't been to a movie theater since I think the last movie I saw might have been Avengers, the last Avengers movie.
It's not bad. Around here we're obviously in South Jersey area. Theaters are about, I think they can operate currently at like 30% or something like that. So, it's actually not bad because if you book, like you pick your seats or whatnot, but if you book it right, like there's literally like no one around you whatsoever, like no one in front of you, no one side of you. Like, so it's actually great. It's great. I put my feet up. It's absolutely great. I love it. So
I saw Godzilla versus Kong in the theater when that came out, and it was the same situation. Like there was there was almost nobody in the theater. I had nobody. My wife and I had nobody to the left or the right of us. Like it was just completely open. It was a wonderful experience.
All right. So the first thing that we're going to go over, I think, is so you guys saw the original '95 movie, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really not a bad movie. I mean, especially considering '90s and special effects and stuff like that.
At the time, it was definitely the best video game movie.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah. Unfortunately, the '90s were not good for video game movies.
No.
90s weren't good for a lot of things.
It's true. What are we talking about? '90s were great. Shut
up. It's fine.
I think we're all '90s kids, right? We're basically the same age.
Yeah.
Well, you know what happened too, and maybe we'll have to do a review on it one day, but the Super Mario Brothers of the 1990s, I think it was like 93, like totally ruined, I think, financing for a lot of these other films to get made because that was such a bomb that, I think it kind of put a dent on that video game, error of happening. It slowed down the process. Where now there's tons of video game movies.
Well, it's funny because you like that's one extreme. That's like Super Mario Brothers, and it was '93, and it was terrible. But now we have like The Last of Us coming out in the next like year or so.
That's going to be an HBO show too. Hell
Yeah.
yes. Hell yes.
There's going to be so much good stuff coming out, and I think especially since like the '90s, video games have really they've gotten better, but also too they've gotten more respect. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
You're much less of a dork if you play video games, I guess now.
Nerd, less of a nerd,
right? Unless you play Fortnite, and then there's something wrong. It's but then that gets into the problems of video game stories and trying to transfer them into movies, and we'll talk about that in this movie.
Yeah,
for sure.
The original. Did you guys all see the original one in the theaters? Do you remember that or not? Because I'm a year or two older than you guys.
No, I would have only been about 12, so what probably wasn't allowed to go. Well, I don't know. I saw Terminator.
I might have seen it in the theater.
This is one of my early memories. I 100% remember seeing the original one in theaters. I remember being hyped up to go see it. Shout out to Tony DiDino. I remember going to see with him, and I think Rob Duffin. We went to go see it. We saw it at Millside Theater, which is no longer there. And I believe one of their moms took us because I think it was PG-13, and we were only like you said, maybe 12 years old or 13 at the time, maybe. I remember being very hyped up to go see this movie. The other specific memory I have in this movie theater, we saw it in the afternoon. I remember it was like an afternoon show. I remember as the characters appeared on screen because it's not like today where you can watch the whole YouTube video and like you see a million clips before it even comes out. Like, you saw maybe a little crappy trailer, and that was it. So you didn't know when certain things were going to be happening or who was technically all going to be in the film. So I just remember being so excited, and kids were in the theaters, and like when Scorpion showed up on screen for the first time in that far scene, every kid in the screen was like, Scorpion! Like everybody stood up and was like yelling, like, Scorpion is here. Like, I just remember being so excited seeing that movie for the first time. So it was that's why when we talked about doing this, I was like, you know what, this is like an early memory. So we have to do it.
All right, so during the show, we're going to talk about the movie and the plot and the making of the movie and what we think about the movie. But first, Matt has a giveaway that he wants to announce.
That's right. So we're actually going to be giving away something awesome. We have this Mortal Kombat from Mortal Kombat 11 Ultimate Edition. That poster we're going to be giving away later on the show. We'll say a secret word, and all you guys got to do is shoot it in his email, and we'll have that information for you guys in a little while. So keep watching.
Okay, awesome. So we'll keep an eye out for that. So first, let's talk a little bit about the movie. So the movie is about a guy named Cole that has to, I guess, realize his potential and his family lineage and protect Earth realm, right? And defeat the forces of evil. Now the story gets a little bit complicated because it tries to bring in like the video game story. The video game story is basically there's a tournament. People battle for the tournament, and then either Outworld wins or Earth wins, and then good or evil wins. But the movie's a little bit different. It opens up in the past, opens up in the 1600s, where basically Sub-Zero's character and Scorpion's character fight.
Yeah, I have a synopsis of that. I can read it real quick.
Yeah. It's probably better if you do that because I watched it on Friday and I forget a little bit of it.
Yeah, this was part of the notes that I was taking, so I'm just going to read this super quick for you guys. The opening takes place in Japan at Hanzo's home. You don't know who Hanzo is at that point. They just introduce him. Where his wife and two children reside. Hanzo goes to retrieve water from a nearby stream. A weird chill takes place, and I believe you see snow falling as people start attacking Hanzo's home. His wife hides the youngest child under some floorboards. Hanzo hears screaming and runs to find his wife and children are frozen solid. Sub-Zero appears and explains that they were in rival clans. I tried to write this down as best I could. That's from what I took from it. They were in rival clans. Like from what's that, Dan?
Part of it was in Chinese, part of it was in Japanese.
Yeah. What was that all about? That half of it was in Chinese and half of it was in Japanese. I didn't really understand for the context of the film, like why not just make it either all Japanese or all Chinese? I didn't understand that part.
I think it's
Well,
because they were warring factions like back in history.
yeah.
But I mean, like here's the thing, right? Like I get that, but like we're not making we're making a kids movie that's like a teenage movie. Like we're not making like a historical documentation here. You know what I mean? Like why not just make it one or the other?
Well, that's one of the bigger problems with the movie is the movie takes itself seriously enough that it tries to pass everything that it's doing off as like real. You know what I mean? We're gonna do Chinese, we're gonna do Japanese, and then the rest of the movie happens, and none of it's any good. So I think, I mean, the only thing I can think of is maybe Scorpion was Japanese, which it seems, and Sub-Zero was Chinese. So I guess they fight.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean
don't
that's what it appeared to be. Like that definitely appeared to be like, like some ancient rivalry between Japan and China, at least these rivals factions. And I'm sure there was, if you got like deep into the lore, it was probably like an invasion on Japan or an invasion on China or something like that.
Well, for a minute too, in the first scene, I think he's speaking Chinese, meaning Sub-Zero. Sub-Zero speaking Chinese, I think, to his wife, to the wife and son, and he mentions that they don't understand him. I think I don't know. I agree with Anthony. I think it just makes sense just to keep them all kind of. It's a foreign language. It doesn't even have to be Chinese or Japanese, but
yeah, they might use that later down the line to explain stuff more. Like so just some slight background about the new games. The new games are actually like really well known to have excellent stories at this point. The past two Mortal Kombat games, X and 11, they both are like supposed to be some of the best fighting game stories around. I played a little bit of X. I didn't play any of 11, so I can't familiarize yourself with like that story to the T. But it definitely seems like they are focused on like making that story somewhat relevant. So that's probably why they're trying to use things like that in the game. That might even relate to a story that's already in the game that I'm not aware of.
Well, I mean, going back to like the first Mortal Kombat, Scorpion and Sub-Zero, they're just different color skins. Like that's the actual answer is why they're rivals. But like the reason they're rival is because Scorpion kills Sub-Zero, and then snowballs from there. Haha, it's a pun because it's a snowball. Fireball. All right. So, but see, so all right. So it's difficult to kind of go through the story without really kind of criticizing it because, the story of Mortal Kombat is there's a tournament. And in the first movie, the 95 movie, they did actually a pretty good job of that, where they basically recruited everyone real fast and then they threw them into the tournament. And then you saw, like in the first movie, you saw, like Reptile, and you saw all these characters that were just fighting like a normal tournament does. In this movie, there was no tournament, nothing whatsoever.
There was supposed to be.
There was supposed to. I bet you there was supposed to be, but it looked really expensive, so they didn't do it. And near the end of the movie, and I'm skipping ahead a little bit, I guess, is that they throw a couple people into kind of well-known locations, mainly the pit. The pit comes back, but nobody gets uppercutted into the pit. Just a guy.
No, I was kind of expecting that. I'm surprised that wasn't in there.
Well, I mean, the fatalities, some of the fatalities were like iconic, especially with Jax, where he squishes his head and stuff like that. So
yeah.
I think maybe they kind of missed the opportunity because the whole movie's fan service, right? It's not like you're going to watch this movie, go, oh man, I can't wait to see what happens in Mortal Kombat. Like you just want to see like the shit that you want to see, right? You want to see like the cool part where like Kano rips out Reptile's heart and he's like, Kano wins. It's like, all right, well, all right, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, but there was a few good moments where like, all right, that was awesome.
Yeah. But then there were these parts where, and like the character, it's going to be really difficult to not talk about this, to actually talk about this movie and just not kind of pick it apart, but I'll do my best.
So I mean, listen, picking it apart is what we're here for, right? Like, I mean, the good, the bad, the ugly, we're going to highlight it all, just being honest. We're not making any money off this. No one's paying us to say this. You know what I mean? So just keeping it completely 100% honest is what it's all about, because I got a lot of thoughts and about the things that went on. And here's the other thing too, which I'm going to comment on. I brought my girlfriend to the film, who's not familiar with Mortal Kombat at all. So I explained to her. So I kind of got a perception of like the outside the box look of what she thought about it too. So I think there's a lot of like perspective that I got on the film as well.
She fell asleep.
Did she?
Yeah, she fell asleep about maybe 30 minutes into it. I think maybe she got to like Kano and she's like, "Oh, Australian," because
here's the main thing about the film that really kind of I thought just happened with the character, starting with the character development, since we're going through the film.
Hang on real quick. I want to just drop something in here real fast. So, just to kind of catch people up on what happened with the story, okay? Just so in case somebody's watching this and they didn't watch it yet and they just want to just listen to this for some reason, who the hell knows? But basically, after Sub-Zero killed Hanzo, he kills Hanzo. Hanzo dies. And the baby was left under the floorboards, okay? So then the baby ends up being rescued by Raiden. Raiden shows up, out of the electricity that he creates, making the time portals and stuff. And then after that, the time shifts forward, and you find, the next scene is basically young Cole. Cole Young is his last. Well, Young is his last name. I was going to say Young Cole, but is Cole Young? Yeah, it's Cole Young. You see him, he's a cage fighter, he's a mixed martial artist.
Right, he's really bad at it, if you haven't noticed. He gets his ass whooped by some guy.
Yeah, he gets beat by some rando for 200 bucks.
And he sucks.
Dane, he hasn't found his Akuna yet,
His what?
Is it Akuna? Is that what it's called?
You
don't remember?
Their secret power. Their secret powers.
Right.
Yeah, man. You gotta let him find his Akuna, Dane. Come on, dude. Shit. So that's really how the movie opens. Like, we can go through other story elements if you guys want to or not, but I just wanted to at least get that part out. So that then Cole, this guy Cole, is the main character of the story, so you guys know. Okay, I spent the entire movie trying to figure out who the F Cole was. I went over and over in my head. I was like, oh,
he's not anybody.
He is a new character that they created just for the movie.
And so the thing about it too, because I haven't played the recent games, I'm more into the old games, and that just confirms, like, he's not in any of the games, right? Like, there's no one at all. So two thoughts I had. One, do they plan on introducing him to future video games is what I'm thinking about. Because now he's gonna be a main character in this, if they're going to be trying to make more films. So I wonder if that's going to happen. Because I was pretty sure, I was like, I don't think this guy's in any games. Even though I haven't played many of the new stuff, I was pretty familiar with a lot of it. And I'm like, I don't think this guy's in any of the games whatsoever.
That's your answer right there.
What do you mean by that? Money.
If people like him, if the movie sells well, they're certainly going to put his ass in a game.
Yeah.
If they smell money to be made, it's going to go in a game for sure.
But he's kind of crap though. Like, who's going to want to play as Cole Young?
That's one of like honestly, it's as we're getting into stuff of the movie, that's probably my biggest problem with the movie is, like, he is not exciting.
No, his power, like, all of the other characters get powers that so, like, obviously Liu Kang, who we haven't talked about yet, he has his fire, and Kung Lao somehow is in this movie, and he has his hat. Okay, basically his hat is Captain America's shield. But everybody has powers that you kind of know, with the eyeball, and later on with, like, the pink things that she shoots. Spoiler. So I know why Cole Young is in the movie. Cole Young is in the movie because when you make movies at all, when you tell stories, you have to have a character that the audience relates to. So basically, and remember, we were talking about this during the last movie thing, during the other movie we watched,
right?
Cannibal Holocaust, right? No.
Human Hibachi.
Human Hibachi.
This is your show.
Cannibal Holocaust is another movie.
Dane's got to know his movie reviews.
Right. I know, I'm not good at it, but I mean, my point is, so basically, you have a character that you follow. So the idea is that the person watching the movie, relates to Cole, guy that hasn't achieved his potential and has to go on a journey in order to find his potential. And unfortunately, by the end of this movie, Cole's potential sucks. It's lame. Like, he doesn't he doesn't have any powers.
Can we just state the obvious too, that, like, it's a total Black Panther ripoff? like his power. He has the absorb suit that just absorbs power that he can put. It's a complete Black Panther ripoff. That is completely a ripoff of Black Panther's suit.
It's not
100%.
really power either. It's like it's just like he grows armor basically.
Yeah,
Which I
and
guess is fine. It just means that, it doesn't make his like fighting ability any better. Just
Yeah.
means that he can take a bigger beating and get his ass kicked more.
he can just
you know what I mean?
power. It just, I don't know. I just
He's
thought it was
gonna need that armor because he's getting his ass beat the entire movie.
With 4 arms.
Over at the very end.
But all right, so I mean, but like they could have made the movie a little bit more fun too, because like in that so basically we meet Cole, Jax meets him, Jax and him eventually meet Sub-Zero.
Yes, that scene I thought was pretty cool. I did enjoy the Jax versus
shotgun
Sub-Zero.
and stuff like that. That was pretty cool. And then, but if you know anything about Mortal Kombat, you already know what's going to happen to Jax. You know what I mean? That wasn't really much of a surprise. And then
it was cool to see it though. Like that was like,
yeah,
I think that's like the main point of this movie. Like if you play the games and you're like, oh, I want to see this cool thing happen, and then you get that, it's very rewarding. It's like, fuck yeah.
But that's my point, is that's why you wanted to watch the movie. You didn't want to watch about the struggles between Earthrealm and Outworld and Shang Tsung, who, by the way, did not shapeshift in the movie. Okay, not once. You don't want to hear about that. You want to see the cool shit. The guy, when Kung Lao throws a hat down and then splits the chick in half, you're like, that's in the game. You know what I mean? Jax squishes the guy's head and explodes.
That fight really pissed me off, though. I don't know if we want to go that far yet, but I guess I'll save it for later.
We're jumping around right now. I think we're off the rails. We're just going.
Yeah, I mean, that's really something. Oh, man. I mean, we can get to that in a little bit. This is where I started criticizing the movie. I don't know how you guys thought, but did you find it strange that Cole just meets Jax and in less than 24 hours, he's following everything he says to do?
Yeah, it was not enough setup for that moment. It was like they're in a gun battle. This guy he just met 30 seconds earlier, basically, that he didn't even like when he first talked to him, and then all of a sudden he's now traveling halfway across the country to meet some random chick.
Leaving his wife and daughter.
Yeah, yeah, seems
fine.
Legit.
Wherever I left them, I don't remember.
Yeah, I was down for everything to that point, and then I was just like, that is so jarring to me.
I think they just rushed that story plot line way too quick with that, and trying to just piece it together. Like, I think they could have just easily had Sonya there with Jax, and they just, Sonya takes him away instead of like, okay, go meet this girl you never heard of, you don't know, halfway across the country. It just seemed too, it was a fix to a plot hole that they had.
That was my biggest problem probably with the movie, is the pacing was so terrible. But I think they were trying to cram it all into an hour and 50 minutes. And hey, Warner Brothers, if you want to fix this, go to HBO. You guys have like the partnership with HBO, or you own HBO or whatever. So go ahead and do that. Make a damn mini series out of this. Make it like a 9-part mini series where you can get that story that you would actually need to make it good. Even I'm not even saying this movie is going to be great, because let's be real. The story, the outline is probably never going to be great, but you could make it good. But you have to take your time. You can't shove it into an hour and 50 minutes. And all those weird parts could have been fixed with miniseries.
They already kind of did it. You remember 10 years ago? Remember like 10 years ago, they did those shorts, the Mortal Kombat shorts.
Yeah, but I think they were like independently financed. They weren't through like Warner Brothers. They were trying to
right.
I forget what the guy's name that was playing Jax. He was independently doing that stuff on his own, right. I think.
But they could, right, but if that's the case, then that was good. A lot of that stuff was really good.
That was real good.
You could have just pulled what you were doing there and just kind of made it right. I sent a text to a buddy of mine. I said it's kind of like, it reminded me of kind of like a low budget, like a Hercules or like a Xena episode from the 90s. You know what I'm talking about? It was like basically where in the first 30 minutes of the movie, they're walking through the jungle, or rather they're walking through the woods because it's the cheapest way to do anything. You know what I mean? And then later on, like, because there wasn't much, literally they're in an MMA ring. They're in a forest. They're in a junkyard. And then they're in what looks like a temple made out of styrofoam. Okay, for most of the movie, like it's pretty cheap,
Oh yeah.
and it just could have been better.
I think like we were saying about cramming it in, and I compare a lot of stuff to Marvel because I think Marvel's obviously set the bar for a lot of these kind of storyline things. Now, the thing that Marvel does great compared to this, and I think this is where Warner Brothers dropped the ball on, is that Marvel sets up the backstories of all the characters so you can actually feel that you are attached to these characters, and then they bring them all together. Where this is the opposite. We are in a theater, we're watching, what I think there was like 12 characters introduced into this film, and like for my girlfriend, she doesn't know any of these stories. She doesn't know any of the backstory. So for her trying to keep up with all these storylines of all these different people all together, I think the film would have been a lot better if there was like maybe 6 characters in this film. But they just threw so many characters at you that it was very difficult to keep track of who was who, what was what. And if you had no background whatsoever, I mean, you got to be completely lost at this point.
I mean, that's actually what happens next. So Jax tells Cole to go meet Sonya Blade, who they mention, and like you eventually see Sonya Blade, right? And then during that scene, it cuts to essentially the bad guys. They're part of the Outworld. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And you see like Shang Tsung, and he's talking to Melina, who, by the way, should have been like a star in the she should have had a way bigger, like, her character's freaking awesome, and the actress did like a great job. There should have been way more Melina in this story. Like, she is awesome. Anyway, you see Melina, who they just met. Oh, this is Melina. They're just like, oh, here, this is Melina, and she's like, oh, well, we're gonna send a Reptile. So then they jump to Reptile, and like it's like, gee, you just wait. Melina was there with other people too, like, so you just throwing people at you now, and then you're like, oh, here's Reptile. So then Reptile shows up. He's inside the trailer. Is that a trailer that Sonya Blade lives
in a junkyard?
Right.
Yeah.
And Reptile is not in any sort of human form. And in the video game, he's a human that like transforms into a reptile, and he has acid and stuff like that. But in the movie, there was no human form at all. He was just a reptile.
He wasn't. In the first movie, he was a reptile.
But not in the game.
Movie, he was just
Yeah, in the game, like the first time he makes an appearance, he's a human that can like transform into a reptile. Yeah, he was Sub-Zero but green, or Scorpion but green.
Yeah.
So you don't see that form of him at all. You just see him in the form of a reptile. Then Liu Kang shows up, and they're at Raiden's place. So then they're introducing more characters there. They introduced Kano when they're at I'm just going back as a scene. They introduced Kano when you were at with seeing Sonya Blade for the first time. So they are literally every few minutes there's like, hey, here's a new character, and like Dane mentioned, there's no background, or no nothing. It's just here you go. Or Sakali, you were mentioning that actually. You were like, oh, there's no background. Here's a character, and your girlfriend's just like, well, who's that? Well, I guess it doesn't matter. And to be truthful, it didn't matter.
Right. And so I think, like I say myself in the whole grand scheme of that, the character development, could the film have still been the film it was with half the characters in it? And my answer is yes. And it probably have been more detailed. Have more background story. You could have more maybe flashbacks or things to kind of build upon them and actually get attached to these characters. You couldn't get attached to anybody, in my opinion. It's besides Cole.
Think of it besides Cole.
Mm-hmm.
Other than what the movie tells you, or shows you rather, what do you know about Sonya Blade, Jax,
ex-military,
Kung Lao, Liu Kang? Nothing other than you just see them in a little 2-minute or 3-minute introduction, and then that's it. You don't find anything interesting about any of them. You know what I mean? There are huge backstories, and it's sort of like what you were talking about Marvel. Marvel is kind of like the gold standard, and in a way, it's sort of like the idea would have been to make the Scorpion movie.
Yeah.
If you made the Scorpion movie, you can have Sub-Zero in it. You wouldn't need any of the other characters in there. You just would have needed a couple. And then when you make Mortal Kombat, you make Avengers.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes the most sense. Otherwise, it's sort of like if you've never seen a single Marvel movie and then you watch the first Avengers movie.
Yeah.
Because those movies are made much better, you can get it. But there's sort of like, well, why does that person not like that person? Well, it's because you don't know, but we don't have time in this movie to
Dane,
explain
I'm sorry I have to interrupt you just because you're really upsetting me right now. Where I'm starting to see potential that this had that I didn't
Right.
see before, and
Right. Which
it's
is why
really
I'm so
sad.
disappointed.
Listen, exactly what I was thinking. And realistically, maybe it doesn't have the Marvel background of like 80 million stories before Avengers. I think they had 5 or whatever. But you could easily do 2 or 3. You could easily do the Scorpion, Sub-Zero, do a whole thing on that. You could easily do Jack, Sonya Blade, tracking down Kano, the whole military background, introduce a couple characters in that storyline. And then you could do a whole Outer World storyline as well and mesh them all together. And then boom, you got the all come together for Mortal Kombat. You
And that
could
would
have
fit
easily
perfectly in a miniseries. Like,
Yes.
Right.
a 9 or 10 part
Miniseries is the way
episode
to
or
do it.
something.
Right.
And like you said, HBO has the connection. So like why not just do like basically what Marvel's doing with Netflix? I mean Disney Plus now, and just create a couple mini stories to attach yourself, because there's a huge, I mean, just the Kano, Sonya Blade, Jack's background story of all the military stuff. I mean, there's gonna be tons of fighting in that. It's all military. You could easily make a whole background story of that very simply. And the Sub-Zero, Reptile, Scorpion story. I mean, you could do a whole storyline on that and just bring it all together. But we forced it together, and I think that's the downfall of the series. If they don't really attach you to these characters, it maybe gets a sequel and then it dies off. That's my opinion.
I think that we expect more from movies like this nowadays, with because the idea they're teasing a much bigger world, Outworld and tournaments and stuff like that. So the idea is that if all this bigger story is out there, but we're concentrating on these small little characters, it's better to do them in a small dose, like a mini series or like their own movie. But you don't need to, you know. Mortal Kombat is sort of the Avengers, as opposed to, I would have much rather watched a 2-hour movie about Scorpion and Sub-Zero.
Yeah,
much rather watch that.
Yeah, that would
or Liu Kang and Kung Lao, even though they're cousins, meeting each other and then going on Kung Lao and Liu Kang adventures, and then eventually coming together for a movie kind of like this. I think that that's a much better use of the characters. Right now, they basically shotgunned all of it into our face, and now. And
here's the other issue: they killed off like half the characters in this film too. This is what's kind of like, I mean, you've kind of killed most of the best characters already. And
they killed Melina. Why would you kill Melina? Right. Why?
But here's the thing, the main thing that for just the normal viewer that doesn't really play a lot of games, isn't a hardcore nerd. My biggest thing is that Kano's dead, and my girlfriend was laughing at him halfway through the movie. She was attached to that character because he was funny. Right. He was something, and you kill the person that pretty much carried the film, in my opinion. You killed him off already. I think he could have. I think you could have maybe done something where like you didn't know if he was dead or something along that, and you bring him back later. But you killed off one of the best characters, in my opinion, actor-wise.
Well, they teased Johnny Cage for the next movie. I think probably somewhat of the humor is going to be taken up by Johnny Cage. You know what I mean? Because don't forget, Johnny Cage is a self-important and full of himself Hollywood guy. So that that lends it to comedy, I guess. So if you're going to have a funny character in a sense, where you had Kano in this one, you probably have a douchebag in Johnny Cage for the next one.
So one important thing to note with the characters is in like the current day like Mortal Kombat lore, there's all sorts of like time manipulation. Obviously, Raiden can open up doors to like different dimensions and stuff like that. They can bring back characters, and actually Shang Tsung makes a reference to that towards the end of the movie, that those people aren't really dead. You know what I mean? So he can essentially, I guess they're going to probably explain that to you, how he can resurrect them. So even though those characters died, and I was very upset when some of them died, I was just like, he'll have the capability of bringing them back. So I have a feeling if they are going to continue making movies, they're going to introduce that probably by the next one and start to bring some of the characters back. Like, you're not.
I think they'll definitely give it one more movie. They'll definitely give it one.
So, okay, I'm just looking at the box office. I'm trying to bring up some of the numbers. I'm going to look up some of it. So just the original movie back in 1995 brought in 122 million, which was epically huge for a video game movie at the time. I think you said it might have been the biggest one at the time. Annihilation, the sequel, only brought in 51.3 million when that came out. I'm looking for the stats if there's anything. The problem is I don't know what kind of deal they had with HBO Max, because I'm sure that paid a huge amount for that.
So I saw the box office. It's some my thing. The movie cost 55 million, which if you understand how movies are made and how movies are advertised, in most cases almost double whatever a movie's budget is, because you have to account for advertising. Advertising spend. So you basically need to at least double your budget in order to break even on a movie nowadays, which is kind
So
of
we
one
need
of
at
the
least 110 million.
Right. It so far made $67 million
And
at the
that's
box office, but they're calling that box office. So I don't know what they're doing. I don't know how they're factoring HBO Max.
They're probably looking at just, I don't know exactly how these companies work, but they're probably looking at two things. Like companies who have subscription bases, they check to see what people are watching and what people aren't. So I'm guessing depending on like how many views it's getting, that's going to increase it. Or they might have had a contract where it was like a one-time payment, like, hey, we're going to give you a lump sum of money. We're going to put this over here. Even though Warner Brothers and HBO are partnering together, they have to run things separately. So like HBO on the books had to pay Warner Brothers for that movie. You know what I mean? Like that on the books, that's how it had to happen. So what did that contract look like? It was probably either a lump sum payment, like, hey, this is gonna, HBO was probably like, we'll just pay you for the fucking movie. Like here's how much the movie costs. We're just gonna pay you for the movie. And they might be looking at how many people watch the movie, and an increase in HBO subscriptions is going to be another way. You know, how many people signed up for HBO Max after this movie was released?
Okay, here's some I just dug up some interesting information to share. So they are going to have it on HBO Max for 1 month. And they said that they reported that 3.8 million households watch at least they have, I guess they count it by the first 5 minutes if they actually watch it. Over the first 3 days it was released. That's the most ever for an HBO Max title. So this is, the biggest release they've had on HBO for a film like that. So I would assume that, 3.8 million households watching it. How many of those were new signups? I would assume that that's going to probably push definitely towards a sequel. I would assume if they're doing that well.
I think we can already expect a sequel. I think that they can make the next movie for the same amount of money as they made this movie. I think this movie is going to turn enough of a profit that they'll try again to squeeze, because it's really just about squeezing money out of IP, right? That's all any of this stuff is. So if you hold the Mortal Kombat IP, or you hold the Mortal Kombat movie IP, you're going to want to squeeze as much money out of it. In this case, they already teased the sequel, and it doesn't look like that the movie's a flop necessarily. So even if we get like a crap sequel, we're going to have a sequel. I think
they're just going to have a tournament next time.
And that's the thing. It's like, I think that maybe they were thinking, well, if we make this movie, then we'll tease the tournament for the next movie. I didn't want that. I wanted the tournament. And that's what was good about the 95 movie, was it was real simple. It was, these are your characters. We're going here. We're going to have a tournament. Let's watch the tournament.
Correct me if I'm wrong too. Like there was a lot more martial arts, and like the fighting sequences in this movie just felt like there was like, it was just an end to get to a fatality, or like to, have some like crazy like finishing move. Where in the older one, if I remember correctly, there was a lot more like martial arts involved in it. Like that's really what I was hoping to see, and I feel like I got very little of that. There was a bit, but it was just like, I don't know. It was all like choreographed, and like obviously a lot of CG was involved.
That was really obvious in the later fights with Jax and Big Hammer Dude. I don't know that guy.
Yeah.
And Sonya and Melina. Like it wasn't like the big, obviously the big kung fu martial arts fights were between Scorpion and Sub-Zero. That's what you expected.
Give me more of that then. That's what I want.
What was that? So talking about the fighting scenes, I'll get your opinion. What was your favorite finishing move that was in the film?
The credits.
So for me, it was definitely the Kung Lao.
That was
Saw. I think that was my favorite one. I don't know what the name of it is, but where he turns his hat into a saw basically and runs. Yeah, I thought that was the coolest finishing move that they had in there that I liked.
All right, so right now it's time for the giveaway, guys. The secret password is Annihilation. So if you want to win this arm backwards mirroring. If you want to win this poster, all you have to do is send an email to nerdthusiast@gmail.com. In the title of the email, just write MK, and I'll know what that is. Keep this super easy. And then just inside the body, just write Annihilation. That's all you have to do. And you'll get entered to win. If you win, we'll email you back. You'll give us your information, and then we'll ship you guys out the poster.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Mine's probably the obvious. Like for me, it's the obvious one where Jack smashes his head. Like that's from the game. That was awesome.
Right. I mean, they're all pretty much from the game. The one that was kind of let down from the game was the end one with Scorpion and Sub-Zero. Because like Scorpion in the game, he pulls off his head and then he breathes fire and then he toasts whoever it was. And it was almost like Sub-Zero didn't cook enough. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, maybe I expected like, bones. You know what I mean? I did. You know what I mean? I wanted like charred bones as opposed to just like some guy who's just like, oh, that was hot, and then he just goes over. So,
well, so there were some inconsistencies there with like the horror elements that exist in Mortal Kombat, like where there's gore essentially like throughout the movie. Right. You would think from like a movie like Saw that would be like, spot on, and it's weird. It's so inconsistent because like when they killed Goro, I thought they did a good job with the gore there, but when they burned Sub-Zero, it was just kind of, I get that probably went into the budget though. It was just kind of like, oh, he looks a little charred.
Like, again though, like Goro getting killed, like another major character that's a huge fan favorite getting killed off in the first film. I mean, there's just so many that just have gotten slaughtered in the first film. And like I said, maybe they're not really dead. They bring them back somehow, whatever. Okay. But I mean, to the normal viewer, they're going to be super confused going in like, wait, I thought that guy was dead. Now he's back. It just makes it that more, Well,
confusing. I don't think that there's no weight to any of the characters. Like Goro is huge. He's a big, important part of the Mortal Kombat lore and who he is and what he does and all that kind of stuff. But they treated him, I mean, he had what, 2 scenes?
Yeah.
Maybe?
Yeah, he had an introduction scene in the outer world, and then he had this fight scene. And that was it.
Cool. But like, and so he was just kind of like, all right, we used him, done with him.
That's how the whole movie was.
Everybody else done with him. And it's because they have so many other characters, but it also means that they're not spending the time to develop any of those characters. And that's a shame because there's so much good shit with a lot of those characters.
Who would you guys like to see definitely in the second one? I mean, obviously we know Johnny Cage is going to be in there. Who would you like to see?
Katana.
Mm-hmm.
Katana would be good.
Katana would definitely be up there.
Do with like her and the way she fights.
So I don't like Mortal Kombat 3. I think that's one like not, it's not that great, but they have some cool characters in there. Like Cyrax would be cool to see.
Right.
He's kind of like half robot, I guess, or maybe he's a total robot. I have no idea, but Cyrax was cool. I liked him.
Yeah, he's a robot.
One thing I did like about Scorpion's characters, they send him to Hell, which is the Nether Realm. That's what Hell is, but I don't think they mentioned Nether Realm in the story, which is ironic because the team who makes Mortal Kombat is called Nether Realm Studios.
Yeah.
You figured they would at least drop their name in there, but I think they just referred to Hell as Hell in the movie.
They did, yeah.
So Scorpion comes back from Hell, and that's how he gets his fire abilities, which is awesome. That makes a lot of sense. Like stuff like that I thought was pretty good, but
Well, there's a character in Hell, I think, that controls Scorpion. I think that's part of that's part of the lore. Is part of the reason why he has the ability to do fire and stuff like that is because he's like a herald, like a Silver Surfer kind of thing. You know what I mean? To where they give him power so he could do this guy's bidding in Hell or for Hell. But then he uses it to get revenge on Sub-Zero. That's basically Scorpion's. I think that's basically Scorpion's backstory.
For sure, and for just going back to one other thing real quick, the deaths of these characters, like they don't really. Scorpion's already technically dead. He's like he's residing in Hell essentially. He's called upon from like that blade that was once his that now Cole has in possession. So it seems like Cole is going to be able to summon Scorpion. That just seems like that's going to be a thing with that blade essentially.
That's kind of a cool idea.
But Sub-Zero dying, I'm telling you, man, especially the guys that are from the outer world or outworld that Shang Tsung controls, they're gonna come back. You cannot kill Scorpion or Sub-Zero. Come on, man.
Yeah, I
You're
mean,
gonna have a whole nother movie without Sub-Zero in it. Get the hell out of here.
yeah, I mean, he's one of the best characters, hands down, and they got to keep him somehow, unless they go into a backstory plot line with him somehow, and they do it that way. But it looks like they're going to be focusing mostly the story, if they're going to go that way, to Johnny Cage. But I would love to see more of the Sonya Jax background to kind of flow into that somehow, if that's possible. Because I think, in my opinion, was Sonya was she could have been a way stronger character if you felt more attached to her background. I think we don't know, like, why is she searching for this stuff in the first place, right? Like, that was the main thing that I was asking myself as we're going through. Like, she has a whole wall of crap, and it's like, well, how did you even get? What caused you to, like, I'm gonna start searching for the outer world, like, where? And Jax, like, how did they? I think that was one main flaw that they should have kind of hinted at a little more, besides the fact that they were searching. But, like, why? Like, Jax is a symbol on him, but why does Sonya give a shit about that, right? Like, she, you know, so I thought that was kind of, we need more of that to really fill into the next film if it's going to really connect.
Yeah, I think at this point they're already beyond that. I think they don't care, and it's just an ends to the means. It was to get like to the end. They're like, why would they start caring about that in the next film? If they didn't care about it to do it in the first film, why would they care about that in the next film? My anticipation.
9 other characters
film,
to introduce in the next movie.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly how I feel the next movie is going to be like. All right, let's get 15 more characters. There's like 70 characters in Mortal Kombat, and they're probably going to try to squeeze them all in with no context.
The newer Mortal Kombat games have like the Terminator and RoboCop in it. So are we going to see a Terminator RoboCop like I think Predator's in one of them? Like,
because I'd watch that movie.
This is already making it better. Like, they don't even need to give context. Like, you guys remember Aliens? Right. Here we go.
Right. Oh yeah, one of the wasn't the alien in Mortal Kombat 10?
I think it was 10. And like Freddy Krueger is in there, Jason is in there. Like they have, like, come on, man, like, so awesome. Like, this is what I'm saying though. I think the director is just like, we don't need to have a story. We have awesome shit. Let's just focus on the awesome shit and not worry about anything else. You don't need to know Sonya Blade's. Anthony, you're asking too many questions. You're asking too many questions about this film.
You're asking too much of this movie.
You're supposed to turn your brain off and watch.
Here's a question too. Who would you like to see play Johnny Cage?
Well, they were talking about, the Miz was talking about doing it, which is really funny.
Yeah.
That's a really good idea. That's a really good idea. The way he looks and the way he acts that's a really good idea.
Because I mean, honestly, they didn't really spend any money on like any huge names for this film. Like, there's
like the characters who played like Scorpion and Sub-Zero, I thought were excellent. Specifically Scorpion. Like, I thought he was like, I thought he had more talent physically than pretty much everybody in the movie. Like, why did you pick such a great dude to be Scorpion? Which I understand, but you didn't make him the center of the movie. You make this other guy who's not that interesting, who clearly can't fight it nearly as well as Scorpion can, or Hanzo, or whatever you want to call his character. Why didn't you get a better actor? I'm nothing against the guy. Make a better actor or get a better character for this new guy Cole, because it's friggin' lame, man.
I think for like the actor side of things, I'm sure people weren't knocking down the door to get into this movie. Like, this was something that if it failed, it was gonna just destroy people's careers. You know what I mean? So I think trying to sell name brand actors to get into this movie was probably pretty difficult to do. So as you can see, there's no like headlining names for this film. I mean, there's some actors that have a lot of credits under their name for things, but no one that's like, everyone, it's a household name. So I'm wondering if they do go something like, now that they know they made money, actors in the studios see that this movie made money, do they go after someone like Miz or someone that's more of a household name for this second film, which I could see happening?
I think that would have been a better idea if you started it the way we were talking about, which is if you did a Scorpion Sub-Zero movie. You can cast unknowns in the movie if you make it good. But then, like, if you did it in such a way that you started, and if you basically want people to join the movies. So like if you take the Marvel approach where you take one character, you make a movie about it, and then everyone knows that if they're going to make more movies, you get people that want to be in it. So you get Robert Redford, who's in a Marvel movie later on down the road. You know what I mean? Just I'm just saying is that you get a big name, you get somebody that has some kind of a Robert Redford was not a good example.
No, not at all. Absolutely not.
I fell apart on that.
I no offense to him, but I didn't know he was still alive. But that's good. I'm glad to hear this news.
He's still alive.
But no, I understand what you're saying. You just like you get those people that won't be afraid to put their name a part of a film because it's not a gamble for them. They know, hey, it's a Marvel movie. I can throw my name in here, make a little bit of money. It's not going to kill my career. Whereas if you're a big actor and your agent said, hey, you want to do the new Mortal Kombat movie? You're like, I don't know about that. Like that might ruin my career.
Right.
So no, I get what you're saying. But yeah, I think, I could see something like that, like a name brand. I mean, even, I don't think they would go huge, but like maybe like, someone like that, like John Cena, Miz, someone that's a name brand that is that cocky, look to them. But I think John Cena is probably too old at this point for Johnny Cage is like
probably
supposed to be like
Johnny Cage, yeah.
Johnny Cage is supposed to be like a young 20s, like really cocky dude, But you could definitely they might get someone. Maybe they get someone for
we
that.
live in America. They're not going to have a problem finding somebody in their 20s who looks good and is cocky. I'm sure.
Yeah, well, the problem is that's not a problem. It's a problem of a name that we actually know.
Right. For sure. That's true.
Right.
That's true.
Because let me ask you a question. What's the real name of one actor in this movie?
I know because I have it pulled up in front of me, but
that doesn't count.
That doesn't count.
I'm asking
looking
Matt,
at them.
What's the name of one actor in this movie?
I think I've seen the actor who plays Hanzo. I think I've seen him in other stuff before, but I couldn't tell you what his name is.
He's in a bunch of other movies.
And that's the thing. Like these people have all been in other films. Like I recognized a couple of the faces. Like Sonya, I've seen her and stuff before. But again, knowing that you're like, oh, okay, that is the guy. He's, like they're just secondhand roles. And so I think these actors took a big gamble probably to be in these films. Like, like it was, because it could have been, I think it helps them though. It gives them a little more, like I said, it's a movie that's made profit already. So, that's a good sign. But again, if I didn't look up this list, I wouldn't know anyone by name for sure.
So do you guys have any like closing comments or anything? Do you have like, what were your feelings about the movie overall? What do you feel anything was missing from it? Would you have changed anything? Stuff like that.
I think for the fighting scenes, I like the fighting scenes. I did. I enjoyed what that was. And that's obviously what they were trying to push towards. I really did enjoy the fighting scenes. And like I said,
I did too. I just wish they had more martial arts in them. That's all.
Yeah. I just did not, the story was just too much. I just thought, for someone myself who gets a pretty good grasp on Mortal Kombat, I've played a lot of the games. I'm probably your average person going to see this film. I'm probably the average guy going to see this film. I played the video games. I've seen the old movies. I kind of got a feel it was too much for me. Right. So that's kind of, I just thought it was branded towards the super nerd that knows everything. And they put way too much content into it. It did not appeal to your everyday like Joe but the fight scenes were cool. I liked them. I liked they put finishing moves in there. I like that. So overall, for what it was, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the film for what it was. Did I think it was great? No, but I at least enjoyed it. I walked away. And let's not forget, they closed with the iconic techno kind of remix of the Mortal Kombat song. So that was an A+ in my book. So I actually downloaded it, put it on my gym playlist.
I was waiting for that the whole time. I was waiting for that.
I just wanted it to be the original song.
I know.
The same damn song.
I think, not that anyone cares, but I think, I think the movie was bad. I just so much of it. So I think that they didn't trust the people watching the movie to get it. Like,
but they also didn't help them get it.
Yeah. I mean, they're setting up the next movie to have Johnny Cage and to probably be the tournament. okay, fine. But in this case, though, they didn't do, and I keep going back to it. Shang Tsung is a shapeshifter. That's a huge part of his character. Okay. He sucks what's his face's soul out. Okay, it's fine. That's a part of it. But like, so none of the characters, all the bad guys, not one bad guy, other than maybe Kano, was interesting. Melina was useless. And she's great. She's great in the. I know you love Melina, and she's great, and her character is really good, and everything's
She's
good.
freaking cool, man.
In the movie, she's terrible. I don't know who Big Hammer Dude was, but by the time his head got squished, I still didn't know who he was. Right?
Yeah,
that was Rico.
Cable, I know a little bit about him because he's
Or
somewhat
Rico.
of an iconic kind of like little, you know, like a early 2000s Mortal Kombat guy with the things he's got and everything. But he wasn't very interesting. If anything, he was the most interesting guy, and he had a mask on the whole time, and no, you know, there was nothing. I think the problem was the characters. All the characters were bad. From the character that you are supposed to identify with who is Cole, he was bad through everybody. I think that they did a disservice to all of the characters in the movie. And if they had spent time to develop them, that would have been great. Like Sonya is kind of a boring character, but when you put Sonya and Jax together, and if you gave them their own thing, that would be great. Like what Disney Plus just did with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. These are two background characters, but when you make them both center pieces and you dive into who they are and what they can do, that's great.
I think to go off your Shang Tsung thing, I think they messed a huge part up too, where they didn't have to go fully into his shape-shifting abilities, but I think they should have at least done at least one or two scenes like to explain that he can do that. Because here's the thing, second movie, you know, we know that Liu Kang and his cousin Kung Lao are very tight, right? And we know now that Shang Tsung
in the movie. I don't know.
What's that?
I mean, it didn't seem like that in the movie. We just know that they're cousins, and they say it once.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, you missed a huge opportunity because Shang Tsung takes Kung Lao's soul, right? So now he has the ability to shapeshift into Kung Lao. We could see a huge fight in the second scene where Liu Kang now has to fight his cousin that is actually Shang Tsung. But since we did not set it up in the first one that we know that Shang Tsung can, you know, change and morph, the average viewer does not know that, besides us nerds. Then all of a sudden you take away that, you know, feature of having some of these crazy fights. Now you have to re-explain that, and just, you know, they miss some of those things. But yeah, I take that too. With the Shang Tsung, they missed a huge spot. They didn't need a huge, if they're not going to go with it, they could just said, hey, look, he can change. They, you know, he does some changes, and then they explain it later on. But they missed a huge opportunity. You're like, who is this guy? He's just some old dude walking around. That's all. You know, you don't have anything to go off of Shang Tsung. You have nothing about him. Nothing.
Yeah, there was a lot of missed opportunities. I kind of probably feel more like Sakali. Like, I enjoyed the film, but like, it's like what I went back to say earlier. I didn't go into this expecting much of anything. I expected to see, you know, some blood and gore and like some fatalities. I basically had to take my mind and be like, I need to be a teenager right now and just enjoy this experience and not think deeply about it. And that's what I did. And I thought the movie was good enough. That's how I would describe it.
Good.
Not saying good, saying good enough. And if I went in there like expecting,
you want to take 2 hours out of your life, watch this movie, how was it? It was good enough.
Yeah, exactly. That's my stamp of approval for this film.
Right.
If you're not thinking too hard, if you're not getting deeply invested, if you just want to watch it for fun, it was fun to watch. If I felt similar, I watched Godzilla versus Kong. I felt pretty similar about that too. Like, did it have a great story? Was it like weird and kind of like campy and like cheesy? Absolutely. Did I expect that? Sure. Did I give a shit that it was that way? No. I was like, this is a good time. I'm on this roller coaster. I'm gonna get off this train in about 2 hours, and I'm gonna be happy with the outcome of what happened. And that's pretty much what I got out of Mortal Kombat. It was fine. It was a good enough experience. And would I watch a sequel? Of course I'll watch a sequel. Absolutely.
I'm gonna watch it too. I hated this movie. I'll watch the next one.
Well, that's
Mortal Kombat slightly better. Yeah, sure.
That's my point, Dane. It was good enough to get you. It wasn't
Right,
bad to the
right,
point where
right.
you're like, this is disgusting. You're like, yeah, I'll watch another one.
Yeah. So that was the Mortal Kombat episode of the Nerdthusiast Movie Podcast show. Be sure to check out patreon.com/nerdthusiast for all exclusive content. Also follow us on the social medias. There's Twitter, there's Facebook, there's Instagram, there's TikTok, and subscribe on YouTube, which you're probably watching it on now. Click the bell and then they can notify you when new shows are up. There's Matt Morosi, Anthony Sicali. You can catch them on their own shows, the video game and the poker podcast. And make sure that you check out Matt on the Nerdthusiast Gaming Podcast and Anthony at the Nerdthusiast Poker Podcast. Check them both out. Otherwise, you guys have anything else?
That's
No.
it, man. It was I
All
look
right, no
forward to doing another one.
All right.
Absolutely.
See you guys next month.
See you then.
Later.
Bye.